got two twin 5-inch gun mounts, radar controlled for anti-aircraft protection. Those were taken off in the 50s. Not only do we have the best view of San Francisco, but where you guys are is called Vulture's Row. Now why is it called that? What do vultures do? They stand on something and they look down. This is the only spot on the ship you could come and watch flight operations. So if you work down in the engine room, if you felt the need when you're short 6 hours off, because you work 4 hours on, 6 hours off, if you wanted to come watch flight ops, you could, and you could come up here. Things that are different now also, there would have been a TV camera in that station right there because we filmed every landing. Every single landing is filmed. As a pilot, you're graded on every single landing. If you go down in the ready rooms, you're going to see a chart on the wall that has the grading that the LSO gives everybody as they land. You have 4 wires to pick from. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4 out here. And 3, okay, means you got your act together. And there's one pilot down in one of the ready rooms that has a lot of the 3 okays. That was good. You're also going to see the Fresnel system, the lighting system over here, and I'll show you pictures up top. Fresnel means feather of light. Designed it, invented in the 1820s for lighthouses. You can only see what you're supposed to see, the right angles, if you're at the right angle. If you're too low or too high, you're not going to see what you want. There's a series of lights and mirrors. It works quite well on aircraft carriers and allows us to land at nighttime. And obviously daytime too. But it's one of the tools we're going to use. We're going to talk about a couple others when we get up. The LSO is going to be standing back there. It looks like 2 double doors into a kitchen with windows, and all that is a wind rig. But he's going to be standing there. He's got an electronic control, and if you get time, when you're done, walk down there and see the display of what the equipment they use. You can control the lights on here to tell you to go around if you have to. Where in World War II, we had pals. His nickname is still called Pavels, even though he hasn't his pals. We're going one more time. Around the ship. So when we start flight operations, this man is essentially in charge. What I can do up here in this chair is if something happens on board quickly, instead of radioing the guys down on the deck and telling them to suspend catapult operations, I reach over here and I just turn them off. So I can stop the catapults if I have to. The arresting gear is going to come out of those white squares going across. In World War II we had 10. Now we went down to 4 because we haven't. The reason why is we had to make sure the airplane stopped. If not, they would have crashed into aircraft up front. Here's an example. This is a straight deck carrier. It happens to be the Essex, our namesake of a class. These are Korean War jets. We did not take place in Korea, but we did operate these jets in the 50s. So this is an example of what would happen if you miss a wire. You're going to get caught by that net, hopefully. I jokingly refer to it as a volleyball net, but it's a little more intense than that. If you break through that, you're crashing into all of those airplanes up front. So what you can also see in this picture is paddles, and he's got paddles in his hands. Okay? There's no Fresnel, there's no lights, there's nothing. We don't light up the deck. World War II, there was a couple occasions where they actually turned on the carrier lights to get our planes to come back, so they had a place to land. However, that's highly dangerous. A submarine will shoot you very quickly if they see you like that. You're going to be silhouetted against the sky. So that is World War II up until about 56, 57. Okay? Carrier aviation changed overnight when our friends the Brits came up with the angled flight deck. So now what we can do is we can land and we hit the power, we hit the gas, and if we miss a wire, all we do is go off that end, which is right there, and go around. We're not going to hit anything. And as you can see, there's aircraft stored there's a Skyraider right there, stored all the way on the starboard side of the ship. Once you cross this foul line that's right in here, you're out of danger. We could theoretically land and take off at the same time. We didn't do that, but we could. The big carriers, which are much wider than this, much longer, they also have a catapult on the angled deck, if necessary. We didn't do that. The amazing thing about this ship, that's why I love it, it only took 13 months to build this thing. 13 months. We can't do, there's no way you could do that nowadays, with all the regulations and red tape that go into things. We did a lot of amazing things because we had to. And the prior class of carriers that were before us, and this was really only the second class of U.S. aircraft carriers that were commissioned. You know, the aircraft carriers were new at the beginning of the war. You had the Enterprise, the Yorktown, the Lexington, Saratoga? Yeah. And all of those were sunk, except the Enterprise. They all went down. So we had to build these things quickly. And we built, I believe, 12 of these during the war. The last Essex class, I think, was the Oriskany, which was 1950, I believe. So we got our money's worth out of these boys. And they were essentially cookie-cutter ships, but still 13 months. You can barely build a house in 13 months. And done without computer aids, graphics, pencil, paper, and slide rules, you know. So you can kind of see what happened with carrier aviation. And oh, by the way, paddles doesn't have paddles anymore. He has a trigger in his hand that's going to light up these lights. This is what a pilot wants to see right there. There's Fresnel. The ball's in the middle. The lights on either side are even. That's what she looks like right there. So that's that system right down there. So these mirrors can only be seen at a certain angle. And this is the one we want to see right here. If Paddles doesn't like us, he's going to hit his button, and those red lights are going to flash. That means you go around. You have no choice. I don't care if you're out of fuel. I don't care if you're hurt. I don't care if you're tired. I don't care if you got to go to the bathroom. You go around. You don't disobey the paddles. I know it looks like Fresnel, but it's pronounced Fresnel. The other system we have, and this is the picture of an F-18. So the F-18 doesn't have dials and speedometers and things like that. It's basically a video game. We have this inside of our cockpit right here. So I'm looking out the gun sight, and I see this little thing right here. There's 6 knots of airspeed between too fast and too slow. So if I'm coming down at the right speed, I want to see that. But what that's now letting me do is I'm looking out my cockpit, I'm looking through my gun sight, and to the left, I see this, and to the left of that, I see Fresnel. So, and then by the way, if it's at nighttime, the whole center carrier is lit up. The center line of that is lit up. So I don't want to be looking down. It's the last thing I want to do. But if I'm doing everything that these pieces of instruments tell me, I'm going to land the ship. It's going to land. Now, if Paddles doesn't like what we're doing, well, how does he know we're at the right speed? Because he's just looking at us. Well, he's got good judgment, but he's also seeing that. Well, how does he see that if that's in the cockpit? Because when we drop our landing gear, there's another one of those. In the Skyhawk, it's in the wing root, I believe. If you look at one of these, I can show you where it is on the Phantom. But he's going to see that same set of lights, and he's also talking to me on the radio as I'm coming down. So he sees the same thing I do. And if he doesn't like it, for whatever reason, he's going to hit that button, and those red lights are going to flash. I'm going to go around. But I should be coming down, and I should hit the carrier. And as soon as I hit the carrier on a jet, I hit full throttle. And if I miss a wire, the worst thing that's going to happen to me is I'm going to get a lot of guff from my squadron mates when I get back to the ready room. And trust me, pilots are very competitive, and they will give you the guff. Should we have an issue, and I apologize for this picture, it needs to be redone, but the nets now, instead of coming out down here in World War II, because we want you to scrub off speed on a propeller airplane, and the net will catch you here. We want to catch you back here. So that tower, the red and yellow tower, there's another one on the port side. It takes about 100 guys to deploy that in about 3 minutes. So we know you're coming. We want to stop you back there because if you keep sliding, you're going to go right off the angled deck. So we got to stop you back there. And we don't know why these planes are being stopped because were you to look at these photographs closer, they have trapped the wire. So they've actually caught the wire. So why did we need to destroy the airplane by catching it like this? I'm just guessing. Chances are we had power issues. They couldn't make full power to go around again. So that would be a good enough reason for us to trap the airplane. But I don't know, Scotty, these planes are done when they're trapped on the net, aren't they? Yeah. You stress that wing root so bad. And that one is the same airplane that's up front.
Okay.
Yeah, it's done. It's a parked plane.
Just like that.
Just like that. So this is Pry-Fly. We can also make sure that the arresting gear has got the right weight. Because not only do the catapults have to have the right weight of aircraft, so does the arresting gear. So we try to land and take off aircraft that are about at the same weight. I can make sure that happens right here. They're controlling it back there, but I can also control it here. Okay? Anybody want to take a guess what this is? Oh, there's another one over there. No.
Wind speed?
Wind speed where?
Oh, wind direction.
Oh.
Wind speed where?
Across the deck?
Okay, I'll buy that. I can tell wind direction here, but I need speed. I need 30 knots of wind to run these propeller airplanes up and off the deck. And as far as I know, the jets needed the same thing, even shot off with a cat. So that's letting the guys down on the deck know that we got 30 knots airspeed. If I've got if I got a 15 knot headwind, I need to turn the carrier into the headwind and make 30 across the deck. I jokingly refer to that as the Navy's first digital piece of equipment. And that's why, because I got a digit. Sorry, it's a bad joke. It also changed a bit with the helicopters, because from what I understand, the helicopters don't like winds over 30 knots, so it would affect the rotors. I'm not quite sure how, possibly because they tilt in certain ways. But it's good information for everybody on the deck to know. Basically, in World War II, once you see that thing hit 30, parties are going to start. It's time to launch your aircraft. Okay? So, we're going to move down from here, unless somebody has some questions. We're going to move down. Okay, this is navigation. We are a stone's throw away from the pilot house, the bridge. Captain's office is right there. Captain and the navigator are joined at the hip, pretty much. What you see here is a navigator's chart table, but what you're seeing here is something I didn't even know we had in World War II until I joined the ship. This is a computer. This is an analog computer. So you see a bunch of knobs, dials, servos, wires. It's a lot more complicated than that. This is how far we've come. We went from that to that. Pretty amazing if you think about it. How that worked is we took what information we could get right here. Put the information in here. Coming up, Scotty. A light's going to shine in that little circle there, and it's going to move along with the ship. And that little light's going to shine right here, and it's going to move as we move. The problem with this is there's two things that this could not tell us. So you see knots, you see compass. By the way, the clock, somebody took the winder for the clock. It's not going to tell us two things. Anybody want to guess what it's not telling us? It's not telling us what the wind's doing to us, and it's not telling what the current is doing to us. Okay? So we constantly had to replot. And we did it right there. We did what the ancient mariners did going back to the 1800s. Is we had a chronometer, and we plotted the stars. And we figured out where we were in adjusted to Greenwich Mean Time. That's about as much as I know about the longitudinal issue. The guy that invented that clock, basically, he worked on it all his life. The award from the Crown of England in the 1700s was somewhere around 20,000 pounds, which is about $12 million to this day. And he figured out that the Crown got tired of losing their ships and not going where they were supposed to be when they were supposed to get. Britain owned the waves for hundreds of years. So he figured that out. We could also use the other item that's right behind you. It's called LORAN. It's long distance radio navigation. And LORAN requires a series of radio towers. They send up a beam. They're on a specific point. We steer to those towers. It's like aircraft. If you ever see across the desert, there's these round, they're white, and they got teepee. There's a teepee. They're huge. They're in the middle of nowhere. It's basically how we navigate is what aircraft do. They find the next tower, the next tower, the next tower, the next tower, the next tower. Well, we had that capability in World War II. Well, that was fine around the United States, but for some reason the Japanese wouldn't let us put it on their islands. I don't know why. It came into prevalence in the 50s and the 60s. And then, of course, navigation, satellite navigation supplanted that. So we kind of had to figure out where we were and constantly replot. And that's what these guys are doing. The quartermasters are going to be doing this, but the navigator, who's very good in math, and I wasn't, so that's as good. You got my knowledge right there. What else we got? We show the coffee cups because you got to remember, life in World War II, it's all about coffee, cigarettes, and ice cream. I'll talk a little bit about ice cream later. But ashtrays are everywhere. Everybody smoked. I mean, it is what it is. If you guys didn't know, we were a part of. We recovered Apollo, the first 2 moonshots, Apollo's 11 and Apollo 12. This is a shot of the quartermasters, and from what story I've gotten, is that is an actual shot. It's not staged. That Apollo was coming down in bad weather. If anybody remembers 69, 70, there were still only 3 major TV networks. It was a major world event. Well, bad weather makes for bad press and bad TV. So they had to delay the burn a little bit to get it back to where they wanted. We also had to figure out exactly where it's coming down. I'm told that's a piece of equipment that was very secretive back in the 60s and 70s. It was actually satellite navigation. I didn't know that either. I thought satellite navigation was 80s, 90s at the earliest. We had it back in the 60s, mainly for our submarines. But we needed to know exactly where it was coming down. And supposedly, unless I'm told differently, that piece of equipment was right here, and then it was removed when the ship went into mothballs, because it was still secret in 1970. So, captain's office. He's going to be either here, his cabin is right around the corner, or he's going to be at his chair, or one other spot, and maybe getting some food later on. But there's a lot of activity going on right here, especially between the captain and the navigator. Okay? Questions? No? Okay. Come on through.